On NBA 2K fans, it's Pete Toll, aka PT Sports 84, back with another official NBA 2K ratings update video. Today is April 18th, 2024. This is the ninth official 2K24 ratings update. Not a ton of major changes per se in this one, but some significant names, I guess you could say, in the update have changed. At this point in the season, it's really not a lot that's going to change, like a drastic overhaul for main superstars, things like that. It's mainly going to be like kind of the lower end rotation guys, things like that. The last update was March 28th, so we're 3 weeks in between updates. This one pretty much maybe the last one. Sometimes 2K does a playoff ratings update. Sometimes they don't. They usually only tweak like maybe 2 or 3 players total. So this will pretty much round out the season as we head into 2K25 in the fall. So let's jump into it. In this one, I'm also going to talk a little bit about the teams per se. I'm going to move myself down here just so I'm kind of out of the way, hopefully. And then that way I could see the chat if anything pops up. I'm not sure if I missed anybody so far or not, but let's jump right into it. So the Sixers have some changes. First thing, Tyrese Maxey gets shifted back to point guard. I think this is more so because I saw a few people complain on social media about the I guess my player aspect of it. If you had Maxey at the 2, they pretty much have an opening at the point guard spot, and a lot of people do pick point guards. So it was like kind of a little bit of an abuse towards, with this picking the Sixers, I guess, because of no point guard slot. But anyway, no retro players added. No, this time of year, there's not going to be anything retro. They've already moved on to trying to get stuff ready for 2K25. Still, I personally am still trying to reach out to players, trying to get them into 2K25. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't really ramped up a lot. I've got a few names that I'm not going to be able to publicly disclose. But I can tell you that there are a few guys definitely going to be added for next year. On top of that, I haven't really dove into really digging deep and really reaching out to a ton of players. I've had a few reach out to me, and so we'll see what happens there. But probably the end of the month, going into May, I'll really heavily push contacting the players that aren't in the eras and the classic teams and trying to see if I can get those guys into the NBRPA. Therefore, they'd be eligible for NBA 2K. But let's get back to the ratings update. Enough about retro stuff. There is no retro content updated. So the update itself for the ratings, campaign drops -1 to a 76. Nick Batum drops -1 to a 74. They are not counting the last night's play-in tournament where Batum went off. So nope, not counting that there, that he went down. Still think he's pretty low in the game at a 74. Also, likewise, Ricky Council IV gets bumped up to a 74. This is because he actually played minutes in the last 3 weeks, and so 2K was able to update him. Going to the Milwaukee Bucks, Damian Lillard drops out of the 90 overall club. He drops -1 to an 89. Patrick Beverley +1 to a 77. Malik Beasley continues to drop -1 to a 75. And then AJ Green drops -1 to a 72. Interesting enough, in the looking at the Bucks, without Giannis to start the playoffs against the Pacers, I worry about this team. Lillard's basically looked unhappy. He's away from his family. Not being able to see your kids. As a father myself, if I was not able to see my son, I would be a wreck. So I can imagine where he is with that. It is what it is right now. But with the Milwaukee Bucks, they just don't seem in sync. Doc Rivers, the coach, doesn't make adjustments. That's an understatement. They just don't look like they're gelling and having fun overall. So I would not be shocked to see the Pacers take out Milwaukee since Giannis is not going to be there for the beginning of the series. We will see. Chicago Bulls got a much-needed win last night. Now they go against the Miami Heat. The Bulls beat the Atlanta Hawks in last night's 9-10 matchup. In this one, we get a position change for DeMar DeRozan. We get him bumped up to an 88 overall. Then Javonte Green, who's played really, really well since signing on with the team, goes a +1 to a 76. Then we also get Anrelap Batim, -1 to a 71. Overall, I think that Chicago has a chance now to beat Miami because there's no Jimmy Butler. So that's going to be a significant blow to the Miami Heat. If the Chicago Bulls get into the playoffs, that's an easier matchup, obviously, for the Boston Celtics. I think maybe they could sneak a game just because Kobe White has been so phenomenal this season. I think in NBA 2K, as the default rating for Kobe White, I think it's low. I think he definitely needs more badges. An 83, 84 overall is more than enough for Kobe White, considering him and Tyrese Maxey are going to both be vying for that most improved player award. So definitely think they need to get Kobe White up in rating, but it looks like it probably won't be till next year. Overall, I'm not going to harp on it, but they've got to figure out the roster team, in my opinion, work with Zach Timmerman, figure out what stats need to be put in to get these badges upgraded, because there should be a significant amount of badge edits done to each player in this offseason to get guys bumped up quite a bit on the badge side of things to make them more effective or less effective in the game, because the badges seem to have more hold over gameplay than the actual attributes do. So I think really getting a hold on the badges and getting things incorporated correctly is going to be a huge step for 2K25 and moving forward as far as the badges go. Just my opinion. Going over to the Cleveland Cavaliers, this is the team that's going to be the most questionable out of the playoffs against the Orlando Magic. I think the Magic have a real shot to beat Cleveland if Mitchell's not effective and we get the Darius Garland that we've seen lately where he struggled. Speaking of Mitchell and Garland, those are the two changes for this update. -1 for Mitchell to a 92, and then Garland -1 to an 83. They're really going to have to rely on Karis LeVert to help with playmaking and scoring. They need an effective defensive output from Evan Mobley. Max Strus is going to have to shoot the lights out. You're going to have to get good shooting from Sam Merrill in spurts. I don't think he plays a ton, but maybe a little bit to provide the shooting. And then Georges Niang, same thing, shooting in order to beat Orlando. It's not like Orlando's unbeatable because they do sometimes struggle on offense, but I think they have a real shot to get the 4-5 matchup over Cleveland. Boston Celtics. So looking at the Celtics, Peyton Pritchard goes +1 to a 79. Luke Cornett goes +1 to a 77. Xavier Tillman goes +2 to a 76. And Shvi Mikhailuk goes +1 to a 73. Overall, Boston, like I said, they're going to probably either play Chicago, obviously, or Miami. Miami is going to be a lot tougher, but without Jimmy Butler, it gets easier. But Chicago, I think, could maybe get a game if you get a lights-out game from Kobe White or whatever. And sometimes the Celtics have the inability to know in the moment that they should keep their foot on the gas pedal, and they let off and let teams back in. So we'll see what happens, but I think Boston takes the series pretty handily. Clippers. The matchup of the playoffs, I think, that's going to be the toughest is the 4-5 between Dallas and the Clippers. It can go either way. Kawhi, obviously not healthy. That throws a wrench into things. James Harden, not really effective scoring. Throws a wrench in things. Westbrook's got to reintegrate. You do have Norman Powell and Paul George. You got Terrence Mann defending Luka. But then on the other side, you got Luka and Kyrie. And last time these teams faced off, there was no Kyrie. You've got a surging Daniel Gafford and a defensive minded PJ Washington. Dante Exum's good. So it could go either way. I think Dallas ends up taking it in 6. Just my opinion. But I would not be shocked to see the Clippers taking it in 6 or 7 either. But let's look at the ratings. James Harden drops -1 to an 85. Ivica Zubac goes +1 to an 82. Amir Coffey +1 to a 75. Bones Highland +1 to a 75. And then PJ Tucker drops down to a 72 overall, -1. Memphis Grizzlies. So for those that haven't looked at the roster in a while, most of the team was injured to end the season. So it was a lot of G League guys or guys into the roster guys that played. So those are the ones that changed in this update. But injuries are removed for non-playoff teams. They did not get to the Atlanta Hawks being eliminated because it was so late last night. So that'll probably be in the future update, maybe in the coming week or so, once they kind of start eliminating teams in the playoffs. But changes for them here, we get a big mover. Well, first I'll go with Brandon Clark goes +1 to a 78. Scottie Pippen Jr. really resurrected his career. He was in the G League. He played obviously last year for the Lakers. I think he really put a hold. Shouldn't say resurrected, but I think he really put a hold on his career to be able to stay in the NBA. He is a third point guard for an NBA team easily. He goes +2 here to a 76. He played great down the stretch for Memphis. Jake LaRavia had a big scoring outburst a couple games. He goes +1 to a 75. Jordan Goodwin shifted to off ball a little bit with Scottie Pippen running the show. He goes +2 to a 75. And then Trey Jemison III goes +1 to a 74. He was basically the starting center to end the season. So you've got guys on this team next year. If you look at their core, Moran obviously coming back, JJJ coming, having another year under his belt, Bane a healthy season, Smart will be healthy, G.G. Jackson, Vince Williams, those guys are both going to compete for the small forward spot. I think I would give it to Vince Williams for the defensive prowess. Let G.G. kind of be a 10-11 guy in the rotation. You've got to get a big if you're Memphis, and I think that's what they're going after in the offseason. We'll see what happens there, but they have some pieces moving forward. I would not be shocked to see them swing for the fences and make a bold move to get a small forward in there if they don't want to start Vince Williams. We'll see, though. Atlanta Hawks, most disappointing team of the season, in my opinion. Quinn Snyder was brought in late last year. It didn't work with Trey and DeJounte Murray. And now it looks like Trey's probably going to be on the move, I would guess. You move Trey to either the Lakers or the Spurs. Brooklyn's a distant possibility, but I don't see Brooklyn. I see Spurs or Lakers. For him, that would shift DeJounte to the point guard spot. But let's jump to ratings real quick before I talk more about the Hawks. Vic Krejci goes +1 to a 72. Dylan Windler +1 to a 72. Krejci was not converted to a standard contract. Looks like the Hawks want to get him back. He's a restricted free agent, so they want to bring him back next season. And then Mohamed Gay is +1 to a 70. So nothing major here for them. The biggest thing is going to be the continued emergence of Jalen Johnson. Do they trade Capella this offseason? Trae Young, obviously, going. And then what happens with A.J. Griffin? Can he step into a role? Obviously, he had personal issues this past season, injuries. Sadiq Bey is out for most of next season. with the ACL tear. So he's a free agent as well. So they're going to have a retooled team. It just depends if the Hawks actually want to spend to make a difference. Miami Heat, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, unfortunate for Jimmy Butler. He's going to miss a couple weeks with the MCL sprain. And we'll see what happens with their playoff hopes. But ratings changes there for them. Jaime Jaquez and Duncan Robinson both go -1 to a 78, +1 to a 77 for Nikola Jovic, playing well. We'll see what happens for next season if he's not a trade candidate, possibly. Haywood Highsmith goes +1 to a 76, and then DeLon Wright goes +1 to a 75. Charlotte Hornets. Mixed bag on this season. They're going to get a new coach, Steve Clifford, obviously moving to the front office. They've got to hire a development coach. Last go-round, they went with Kenny Atkinson, who then backed out of his deal and went back to Golden State as an assistant. Do they go that route again? I think you have to go development coach. You've got some young guys on the team that need some seasoning, and Mark Williams, once he's healthy, Brandon Miller, obviously. You've got Trey Mann. He's still 22. Let's see what you got. You got Nick Smith Jr., obviously. We'll see. Obviously, the best player being LaMelo. You've got to get him to a healthy level and then a next level. Obviously, he's been an all-star already, but get him to the all-star level again, paired with Brandon Miller. Let's see what this team looks like next season. But some ratings changes for them. Speaking of Brandon Miller, +1 for him to an 82. We've got Grant Williams going +1 to a 77. Bryce McGowan's goes +1 to a 73. Leaky Black and Marquise Bolden were both players that played at the end of the season due to injuries. They both go +1, 70 for Leaky Black, and then 69 overall for Marquise Bolden. Moving on to the Utah Jazz. I think they're going to make a splash in the offseason to try to remain or try to get competitive again, but keeping some of the young guys they have as well. I think they move on probably from Jordan Clarkson, make a decision on somebody like a Colin Sexton, and then John Collins, obviously. We'll see what happens. But speaking of Colin Sexton, he goes -1 to an 83 overall. Taylor Hendricks goes a +1 to a 77. Kenneth Lofton Jr., benefactor of late season tanking per se, goes +1 to a 73. And then Micah Potter, cashing those corner threes, goes +1 to a 68 overall. Sacramento Kings. We'll see what happens in their fight for the last play-in spot. They have a real shot here against the Pelicans with no Zion. Kings, Domantas Sabonis goes -1 to a 90. Keon Ellis finally gets a bump, +2 to a 76. Still no badges for him. Trey Lyles, +1 to a 76. Chris Duarte goes -1 to a 73. And Colby Jones played down the stretch. He gets a +1 to a 72. The New York Knicks now are going to face the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm looking forward to it. As everybody knows, I'm a diehard Sixers fan. It's going to be a dogfight. I think I'm going to say this. If Embiid is healthy, which he's not, but if he could somehow get healthy, I think the Sixers take it in 6 games. If Embiid suffers any kind of setback or just doesn't seem like himself throughout the series, I think they struggle and the Knicks take it in 6. Just my opinion. Jalen Brunson goes +1 to a 93 overall. OG Anunoby goes -1 to a 82. Josh Hart +1 to an 82. And then Bojan Bogdanovic, position change, and he goes +1 to a 78 overall. Bogdanovic is going to be key off the bench for them. Precious Achiuwa, Miles McBride, if he plays some minutes. I don't want to see Alec Burks get a ton of minutes, but we know Tibbs prefers him. Dante DiVincenzo is going to be a key factor for them as well. We'll see. Los Angeles Lakers, only 2 changes for them. Rui Hachimura goes +1 to an 82 overall, and then Gabe Vincent drops -1 to a 75 overall. Yeah, it's crazy. First Knicks 76ers playoff series since '89. Those that don't remember or were not born yet, the Sixers got swept 3-0 by that Knicks team. You know, the Knicks at that time were just a better team. Now I think it's evenly matched. We shall see. But yeah, so the Lakers now get the 7th seed and they play the Denver Nuggets. I would not be shocked if the Nuggets get taken out. Call me crazy, but the Lakers taking them on early while healthy, I could see it. Now, I could also see it ending in 5 games and Denver just laughs all the way to the second round. I would not be shocked to see the Lakers take the series. Let's just say that. Free throw differential, keep an eye on that. The key is going to be D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. Can those guys step up? What can they bring you game after game? Orlando Magic. I already talked about the Magic earlier when I was talking about the 4-5 matchup with the Cavaliers. I like this Magic team. Defensively, they're very good. If Paolo can stay under control, Franz Wagner can find his shot. I think they have a real shot here. I am toying with the idea in my mind of they should play a lot of Jonathan Isaac at the 5 because I think that presents a lot of defensive mismatches, which benefit them. Corner threes from him as well. Split the time with Wendell Carter Jr. based on performance. Just my opinion. But ratings changes here. We get Paolo Banchero +1 to an 88. Franz Wagner +1 to an 85. Jalen Suggs +2 to an 84. And then we get Wendell Carter Jr. +1 to an 82. I think the Magic take this in, I'm going to say, I want to say 5 games, but I'm going to give the Cavaliers 2 games. So I'm going to say 6. Orlando in 6. Dallas Mavericks. Talked about them earlier with the Clippers. Daniel Gafford +1 to an 82 overall. Dante Exum -1 to a 78. Maxi Kleba goes +1 to a 75. We get Jaden Hardy -1 to a 74. Position change to point guard. Olivier Prosper goes +1 to a 72. He played down the stretch, played very well. I think he's a key piece going forward at both forward spots, especially defensively. AJ Lawson goes -1 to a 71. And we get a -1 for Brandon Williams to a 70 overall. Brooklyn Nets hire Jordi Fernandez as their new head coach. I like Jordi Fernandez. He's a defensive coach, but he's a player's coach. He's very calm, very collected. Coaches the Canadian national team as well. Very well-respected coach, was voted top assistant on the NBA GM survey. I think he's really going to turn this Brooklyn Nets team around, similar to what Kenny Atkinson did previously when D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert and them were there. I think he's going to have that same effect. Now, with that said, we've got to have a healthy Ben Simmons, or at least, be able to trade him if he's not. And then what are you going to do with Nick Claxton? Do you bring him back? What do you do to retool around this roster moving forward? If Ben Simmons is not the point guard, who will it be? But yeah, let's look at the ratings changes. As you can see, Mikal Bridges drops -1 to a 83, +1 for Cam Thomas, -1 for Cam Johnson to a 79. Dorian Finney-Smith goes -1 to a 76. Lonnie Walker IV goes -1 to a 75. Trendon Watford -1 to a 75. And then one of the biggest movers in this entire update, Noah Clowney goes +4 to a 75. He outplayed Day'Ron Sharpe to end the season. They view him as a power forward next to Nick Claxton moving forward. That's pretty huge considering he's going to play summer league. Let's see what he could do going forward. And if Claxton somehow not brought back, do you let Clowney play a lot of center minutes next season? Question to be asked there. Going to the Denver Nuggets. We have changes for them. Peyton Watson goes +1 to a 76. We get Justin Holiday +1 to a 74. And then Julian Strother, we get a -1. I think the whole, obviously, here for Denver is their bench, but I think Christian Brown and Peyton Watson, along with Reggie Jackson, should be okay. Sprinkled in minutes of Justin Holiday, maybe as well. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a tough series for Denver if the Lakers are on the same page. The biggest thing is going to be Darvin Ham and his schemes. That's going to be the de facto X factor, I guess, for the Lakers to be able to beat Denver. For Denver, the X factor is going to be Michael Porter Jr. making shots and then Aaron Gordon's defense. Indiana Pacers, we get some movement for 3 players. We get a +1 for TJ McConnell. We get a +1 for Obi Toppin. And we get a +1 for Jalen Smith. Notes for the Pacers to be able to beat the Bucks: just run. Basically run. Shoot a lot of threes and run. If they can get in the open court and hit shots, it's over for Milwaukee without Giannis. We shall see, though. I'm going to predict the Pacers take out the Milwaukee Bucks in 7. New Orleans Pelicans. Man, Zion was hooping, but now he's hurt. Will not play in the deciding play-in game, unfortunately. He goes -1 to an 88 overall. CJ McCollum goes +1 to an 86. Herb Jones +1 to an 82. Trey Murphy, the third, +1 to an 81. And Matt Ryan goes a -1 to a 72. If you're New Orleans and you lose to Sacramento, no, there was not a retro update. Nothing retro. I think you move on from Ingram in the offseason. Just my opinion. Valanciunas is a free agent. You just move on from Ingram. I don't think Ingram and Zion fit. You've seen everything. It's kind of like the trade, DeJounte. You've seen enough. Like, you don't need to see anymore. Detroit Pistons, worst record. I think what's ultimately going to happen, it may not happen this season, but by next season, they either move Monty Williams to the front office and they get a different head coach, or Monty Williams is fired altogether. I don't see this team. There's too many guys that are role players that are supposed to be the second or third guys. Like, I love Jalen Duren, but he's a role player. Jaden Ivey's a 6-man scorer, in my opinion. He's a bucket scorer off the bench. That's his bread and butter going forward. Asar Thompson can't shoot. He's a good defender, but he's a role player. Fontecchio is a shooter. He's a role player. Isaiah Stewart's a role player. James Wiseman's still a project. Quentin Grimes struggled. He's a role player. I like Marcus Sasser's scoring ability, but he's a bench scorer. That's it. That's what you have moving forward next to Cade. You've got to find pieces next to Cade Cunningham. In a weak free agent class, and you have spending money, make some trades. If you've got to trade Ivy, then you need to. They've got to figure out how Cade can come off the ball, get a pass first type point guard, like a 3-and-D point guard essentially. And you let Cade off the ball, and I think that helps a lot. You have a shooter in Fontecchio at small forward to pair with the small forward in Thompson that can't shoot. So you could flip those guys in and out of the lineup based on what you need. Now, power forward is where they're going to have to focus in the draft, I think. They've got to figure out a better power forward or free agency, whatever it is, trade, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, figure out a power forward because it's not Isaiah Stewart. He ain't it. Changes for them, +1 for Cade to an 86. Malachi Flynn had the 50-point game and did nothing else after that, +1 to a 74. Troy Brown Jr. goes -1 to a 72. And Jared Rhoden goes +1 to a 71. He played late down the stretch. Is what it is. They had to play some of their young guys just because of all the injuries. Toronto Raptors. Interesting note here before I dive into the ratings. Jonte Porter. What the hell are you doing? $21,000 in net profit to gamble on NBA games? Dude, you could have got an endorsement deal for probably $50,000 to $100,000 from somewhere. And you risk your NBA career, or basically ruined your NBA career because you're banned for life now, for $21,000. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That's the dumbest by far. The Raptors. Oh, and they deleted him from the game. He's banned from the NBA. He's now deleted from NBA 2K. For those that don't know, if you're banned from the NBA, you cannot appear as an active player in NBA 2K. You're banned from the Players Association. So therefore, 2K is not allowed to have you in the game. Ratings changes. Emmanuel Quickley, +2 to an 83. Excuse me. Kelly Olynyk, +1 to an 80. Ochai Agbaji, +1 to a 74. Jalen McDaniels, +1 or -1 to a 72. Javon Freeman Liberty. He's not banned. Chance Comanche is not banned from the NBA. There's a difference. You could be convicted of murder, but he's not banned from the NBA Players Association. He'll never see the light of day in the NBA again, but he's not banned. So there's a slight difference. Until he's officially banned, 2K has him. But Javon Freeman Liberty played very good down the stretch. Goes +2 to a 70 overall. +1 for Malik Williams, who basically was a backup center down the stretch, 68 overall. I look forward to seeing... he'll never see the light of day either. That good point. I look forward to seeing what the Raptors do as a retool this summer. Grady Dick, obviously, is a piece moving forward. I like Jordan Nwora as well. Obviously, Barrett and Quickly and Barnes are your staples. They have Pirtle and Olynyk, so you got to decide on Gary Trent Jr. if Grady Dick's ready to step into that role, or you go elsewhere. Probably Bruce Brown won't be back. He'll probably be traded. I think Chris Boucher will be traded. And they have Agbaji there as well. So they have some pieces. They just got to get a little bit more moving forward. Houston Rockets. We get some changes for them. Amen Thompson goes +1 to an 82 overall. And then Jeff Green goes +1 to a 75. They have pieces. Tari Eason will be healthy next year. Now you have Thompson in there as well. Now you've got to figure something out, though. Because Amen Thompson's there. He did so well down the stretch. You've got Dylan Brooks. Does he start over Dylan Brooks? And how does that work? I wonder what they're going to do in the offseason if a trade's not going to happen. I'm still in the camp of Jalen Green could possibly be traded. I would not put that past Ime Udoka saying, hey, look, I want a little bit different look to kind of go with what I like as far as ball movement and things like that. Not saying Jalen Green didn't play well in spurts, but I think for the type of player that Udoka's looking for, I don't know that Jalen Green stays in Houston long term. Let's go to long-term thinking with the San Antonio Spurs. Victor Wembanyama, Trae Young. It makes too much sense. You do whatever you can to go get Trae Young if you're San Antonio. You throw whatever package together that the Hawks want realistically without giving up Devin Vassell or Jeremy Sohan. You give up whatever picks they want, throw in matching salaries, and go get Trae Young. It just makes too much sense to me. Ratings changes. Trey Jones, -1 to a 79 overall. Zach Collins goes +1 to a 79 overall. Julian Champagnie goes +1 to a 74. Sandro Mamakhalishvili goes +1 to a 74. He played well down the stretch. Devontae Graham goes -2 to a 72 overall. And then CD Sissoko goes +2 to a 71 overall as well. Spurs, they just got to figure out getting some more younger pieces to pair with Wemby, get a couple veterans in there. Well, their acceleration to win should start next season. Like I said, with Trae, go get some other pieces. You could be competitive in the West. Doesn't mean you'll be top 3, 4, 5, but you can make some noise. If a team like Golden State doesn't come back on the same page, you know, you got some other teams you could beat out. You could beat out a Pelicans team potentially. You could beat out, some other teams as well, depending on injuries. There's always a team that gets hurt that nobody sees coming. The Grizzlies are going to be back too, so that's going to make it even more competitive. The West is going to be wild next season. Phoenix Suns. Bradley Beal, +1 to an 87. Phoenix is another team I think could make an upset in the playoffs. I think they beat Minnesota. Just me. I think they have the better team if they're on the same page. Yusuf Nurkic, -1 to an 82. And then Eric Gordon gets his pretty much every update adjustment. He goes -1 in this one to a 76. You can always count on an Eric Gordon adjustment from 2K. They spent heavy on this team, so Phoenix has got to win. They've got to figure out how to beat Minnesota. I think if you make Anthony Edwards take tough shots, you'll live with Karl Anthony Towns chucking a lot of shots from 3. He's not going to post up. They're going to need guys like a Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon, defensive stopper, and Royce O'Neal. They're going to need those guys, but most of all, they're going to need Bradley Beal to have a good series, and then Durant and Booker to be what they are, which is scoring. And that's all there is to it. OKC Thunder. This will be interesting. It's either Sacramento or New Orleans. Sacramento, I think, could take a game or two. I would have said New Orleans could take, 2 games, but without Zion, I don't think it's possible. OKC looks really good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the running for MVP. I don't think he has enough to get it. I think it goes to Jokic. Shai did well, but I personally have Shai third. I have Luka second, and I got Jokic first. Just my opinion. But let's look at the update. Shai gets a bump +1 to a 97. Jalen Williams gets a bump +1 to an 86. Josh Giddey came on as the season ended +1 to an 82. Aaron Wiggins keeps going up and up and up. +1 to a 78. Cason Wallace -1 to a 76. +1 for Jalen Williams. +1 to a 76. And then Lindy Waters III goes +1 to a 74. Thunder are going to need guys like Isaiah Joe to hit outside shots. They're going to need Dort to defend. They have to have Josh Giddey playmaking and being able to hit the 3. Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, first time in the playoffs. It's going to be huge. Let's see what they do. Minnesota Timberwolves. Rudy Gobert goes +1 to an 86 overall. Mike Conley Jr. +1 to an 81 overall. And then -1 for Monte Morris to a 76 overall. Keys for this team. What can Nickeil Alexander-Walker bring you? What can Jaden McDaniels bring you? And what does Naz Reid bring you? We already talked about Edwards and Towns. Gobert is going to have to be elite defensively, being able to switch. We'll see. I have Phoenix winning. A lot of people think Minnesota is going to spank Phoenix. I don't see that, but, some crazier things have happened. Portland Trailblazers. They were hit with a ton of injuries as the season ended, but encouraging. Scoot Henderson play down the stretch. He goes +1 to a 78 overall. I still think he's got a lot of holes in his game. It is the point guard position, so I like to give 3 seasons before I call a player underperforming, because point guard is the hardest to master. They've also got to get healthy. We'll see if they trade Robert Williams III in the offseason, if Brogdon's traded, Anthony Simons is traded, because they got to have Scoot starting next year, and you got to start Sharp next year as well. They're bringing back Chauncey Billups as well. But Chris Murray, another guy that is a young player that they like, goes +1 to a 74. Moses Brown, still with no face scan. Hopefully this offseason they can get him scanned. I did message him about a face scan. Hopefully he saw it and will get it done. He goes +1 to a 73. And then Ryan Rupert goes +1 to a 70. He showed some flashes down the stretch. Delano Banton I like down the stretch as well. So, some pieces that they need to add to for next season. Obviously, Ayton's there. Jeremy Grant might be traded potentially. We'll see. I like, guys like Sharp and Scoot and things like that moving forward. They just got to get some more things around them. Golden State. So many people have talked about is the end of the dynasty here. Clay, I think, ultimately goes back to Golden State. But if a team was to emerge, could it be Orlando? Could it be the Lakers that go get him? I don't know. Chris Paul is the one. Him and Wiggins, I think, are the two that move. Chris Paul has the non-guaranteed contract. Wiggins is a trade candidate, which I think ultimately he is traded. My buddy Matt loves him for Dallas next season. Do you take a Josh Green plus a pick for Aaron Wiggins? Maybe throw in another player like a Jaden Hardy or something, and get Andrew Wiggins if you're Dallas? I think that makes sense. For the Warriors in this update, Klay Thompson goes +1 to an 82 overall. Chris Paul gets a significant drop, -3 to a 79. Gary Payton II goes +1 to a 78 overall. Moses Moody gets a bump, +1 to a 77. Guy Santos +1 to a 71. And then Jerome Robinson goes -1 to a 69 overall. I think his days in the NBA, again, might be numbered. He already flamed out once. Didn't do well in his spurts with the big club, so we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked to see a Lester Cannone scan, considering that he was playing with Ronnie 2K and Brandon Podziemski at an event like a month ago. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a face scan for 2K25. Washington Wizards, as we round out this ratings update. So, Jordan Poole actually played decent down the stretch, goes +1 to an 80 overall. Corey Kispert started at the 2 down the stretch, so he got a position change here. I think him and Coulibaly might vie for the starting spot. Coulibaly ultimately winning it, and then Kispert being kind of where he is now off the bench. The biggest ratings mover of the entire update, +5 for Tristan Vukcevic. He played down the stretch for Washington. Didn't do a whole lot. I mean, he did okay. Some scoring, some rebounding. Shoots a lot of threes. Jared Butler goes +2 to a 73. He played a lot down the stretch. Eugene Amarui goes +1 to a 72 overall. And then Johnny Davis just can't seem to get his career off the ground. Goes -1 to a 70 overall. Overall, like I said, 2K just has to be better with the badges side of things. Defensive ratings have to be looked at more as a deciding factor for players. And athleticism, speed, acceleration, and the vertical and strength ratings need to be looked at, because there's a lot of guards that have 50s or 60s for speed and acceleration, while some forwards have 70s and 80s. So it's kind of a mixed bag throughout. The other thing, and I harp on it every year, is player tendencies. They have to be looked at, from the shooting to the triple threat to the roll versus pop to the spot up and cut to the attack the basket and kick and drive and or dish out to open man. Those are the main ones that really have to be looked at overall. I think if they can get all that correct, 2K25 could be a whole different ball game, and it would bring new life to the ratings again. Another thing that I think, feedback-wise, add some more classic teams into the game. I think this is the year that you could really push to add some more classic teams in. Some teams I was thinking of, the 07, 08 New Orleans Hornets, because they had them in before. The only two players that 2K does not have the rights for is Rasul Butler and Hilton Armstrong. You could find Hilton Armstrong. He's on social media. Obviously, Rasul Butler and his wife passed away tragically in a car accident. That's harder, obviously. But everybody else is in. From CP3 to David West to Peja to Tyson Chandler. All those guys are in. The 08-09 Lakers and 08-09 Magic. You're missing Andrew Bynum and Sun Yu for the 08-09 Lakers. Everybody else is in. For the Magic, you're missing Courtney Lee, which he's on social media. You're missing Anthony Johnson, Tony Battie, and Jeremy Richardson. Everybody else is in. You can make a team. 2000-2001 Milwaukee Bucks. You're missing Mark Pope, Jason Hart, and Joel Prisbilla. That's it. Everybody else is in. 04-05 Sonics, Seattle Supersonics. I think that overall you have everybody in except for Jerome James, Robert Swift, Mateen Cleaves. Those are the guys that aren't in. Everybody else is available somewhere. Spoiler alert, I did reach out to Danny Fortson. I'm 99.9% sure he's going to be in the game next year. Spoiler alert. 05-06 Dallas Mavericks. Everybody is in the game except for Josh Howard. I've reached out already. And Raleigh Marshall. Everybody else is in. They're also available in the Mamba Moments already. So you take that data and move it over to the classic teams. 07-08 Spurs. Same thing. They're already in the Mamba Moments. Everybody is in the game. Every single player on that playoff roster or end of the season roster is available in 2K. 2018-2019 Philadelphia 76ers to match up with the 18-19 Toronto Raptors. Easy pick there because that basically changes the whole trajectory of the Sixers. If they win that, and it changes, obviously, the Raptors don't win the title. I think that's a big... that's 8 teams, basically, you could add. And I think it would revamp 2K25 and breathe new life into the classic teams, which often they get neglected, essentially. The other thing, overall, that I think 2K could do from a roster standpoint is the import-export. Allow us to import. I thought about the Joe Johnson team, the 10-11 Hawks, as another one. I saw somebody just mention that. There's a lot of players that are available. Pretty much almost everybody. So they could do it. You could do 09-10 Hawks as well. They need a team to match up with that Portland team, like an 09-10 team to match up with Portland. Another thing, I think import-export, allow the tendencies to be split separate from the ratings, and also allow import-export of player accessories and shoes from the faces. I think splitting those up would allow better import-export and allow people to use different people's rosters or pieces of those rosters to allow seamless retro rosters, etc. Last but not least, headbands should be an editable option for every player. No questions asked. Headbands should be allowed for every single player. We're in 2K24 going into 2K25. There's no reason why we shouldn't have headbands available for everyone. All right. Well, that wraps up this video. Hope everybody's enjoyed the year of 2K ratings updates. I wanted to say thank you to everybody that's tuned in, everybody that's tuned into this broadcast, not just this one, but just overall, who's currently watching, that's not subscribed. Please subscribe. I put a lot of effort into this season trying to get this YouTube channel up and going. If you haven't already, see the playlist I have of over 80 plus player cap faces edited for generic players like two-way players, end of roster players, all that stuff. If there's a player that has a generic face on the 30 teams and in the free agent pool, you can find a fix, an updated, more realistic face for them in that playlist. Thank you to all the creators that help with that. You're tagged throughout the videos. Thank you to all the supporters who stuck with me, whether it was retro stuff. I know we didn't get as much retro stuff as we wanted this year. I was disappointed for sure. I hope it's better right from the start for 2K25. I'm going to do the best I can to try to get feedback throughout the summer to 2K in hopes that it'll be added early if it's not in on the day one roster update. But thank you to everybody for your support. I appreciate it. Please, 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 if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button on the video. Everybody that's watching right now, please, please, please hit the like button. It really helps me. And then please share the video. I really would appreciate it. It helps me get views. It helps me build the channel. My ultimate goal is to put more into the channel next year, even more, diving in early into player face updates, accessory updates, shoes, things like that. Also, I'm not done for this year. Tico, Istakori, and I will be doing an off-season roster again. I'm a little behind on where I thought I'd be with stuff. I'm just now getting into the draft classes and getting guys scouted so I can do ratings, tendencies changes. So it's probably going to be late May until that's released. But we will have that out for you. Tico's going to put his spin on the accessories and shoes. I will handle the tendencies. And then the draft prospects will be added, of course. This year we're doing a roster along with a scenario. So with the roster, I'm leaving it as a base roster in it. And then it allows you to add the rookies from a draft class that I create. And basically you can add them in yourself and go from there in a scenario. Then the actual roster, the Play Now roster, will feature the rookies in it as well. So in case people just want to pick up and play and they don't want to do a scenario, those options will be available. So look out for that. But like I said, please like and subscribe. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. I'll be back in a few weeks with an update video on that off-season roster once it's completed. Thank you for watching. Really, really appreciate it, and take care.